Ladies and gentlemen, I'll get started. The open workshop, December 19, 2017, it is 6:05. I'll take a roll call. Trustee Cruden is here. Trustee Desmond is here. Trustee Finnerty is here. Trustee Gerlich is here. Trustee Lawanda is here. Trustee Munoz is absent. Trustee Ryan is here. Vice President Wilbeck. And President Broderick is here. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This month I was the guest speaker at the Horace Mann School, the PTA meeting. I met parents, answered many questions. They appear to have a very strong and vibrant unit, which is a great and beneficial thing for our district. I hope all the schools can follow their lead. We had an excellent question and answer period, and I appreciate the invitation that they extended. Additionally, I served as a guest speaker at the Bayonne chapter of the NAACP. The community forum was held at the Friendship Baptist Church, and that too consisted of a question and answer period as well as a review of our goals and vision. There was a good attendance, excellent questions, and excellent follow-up questions, so I appreciated their invitation as well. Also this month, students, teachers, parents, and officials were at City Hall for the Bayonne Fire Department's annual poster contest. Everyone was impressed by the dozen of displays from our students and all the awards and honorable mentions that they received from the city. Now, proving that it's never too late to learn, I attended preschool classes at Philip G. Vroom and Midtown Community School. I learned about my numbers, my colors, and different animals. I was very impressed with both the instructional program and physical configuration of the rooms. They did an excellent job putting everything together. The teachers are fantastic, and the kids are super. If you get a chance to visit, please do so. I also attended the district spelling bee and our Bayonne High School winter concert. Our students excel in so many areas that is truly a tribute to our teaching staff. On that same note, this past Friday, I attended the Hudson County Superintendent's Roundtable, where we honored the County Teacher of the Year. And that's always a highlight of each and every year in every district throughout the state. This month, the central office, principals, and directors had a very busy leadership team meeting at Oresco School. The meeting started with a presentation on gang awareness led by the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. Source for Teachers was the last presenter, training principals and directors on how to use the campus user component of the online system. Mr. Kopez will now present in greater detail the training at that meeting. Mr. Kopez?
Thank you, Doc. As Superintendent just stated, last Tuesday, Central Office, principals and directors had a leadership meeting at Oresco School. We started with a presentation on gang awareness led by Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. The presenter was Sergeant William Palico, and he did a wonderful job. The topic is a state-mandated training requirement. The Prosecutor's Office will also be in district to lead future trainings on a variety of school safety topics, and I'll report on those as we move through the year. We are also excited that we have met our goal for a start date of January 2nd for the transition to our partnership with Source for Teachers. I'm going to pass out a breakdown of the transition timeline starting on October 31st and all the key dates, trainings, action items that have occurred to make this happen. If you have any questions about any of those presentations or trainings or anything else for our transition, but mostly I'd just like to thank our staff for their dedication and cooperation, especially the three ladies in my office who've been working nonstop to make sure that this goes smooth. We look forward to a successful first day on the 2nd as we go live with our new substitute management program.
I have a question, Assistant Superintendent Kopez. The training that you received on the gang awareness, is that going to filter down all the way down to the teacher level?
Yes, trustee. That is a requirement for all administrators, and that will turnkey. They will also be sending any new information they'll send to me, which I will get out to the administrators. So it'll be a constant training through PLCs, but of course that will be a turnkey to the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The other presenter at the leadership team meeting was Mr. Paul Pavlik. He's the implementation manager for the New Jersey Department of Education Office of Evaluation. He discussed the new CUSAC regulations for teacher and principal evaluations. Additionally, last Friday, I certified the 2016-2017 teacher and principal evaluation scores. Dr. Degnan will explain why we certify scores at this time of the year, and we'll also share with you the highlights from Mr. Pavlik's presentation. Dr. Degnan?
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Wanko, and good evening, trustees. There's a tool known as the Evaluation Score Certification Tool. It gives us an opportunity to share with the teachers their final summative evaluation from the 2016-17 school year. The reason why we do this in December, and you say most 20% of our teachers do not receive an MSGP, which is Student Growth Percentile Score, until November, and the reason why is because they are evaluated on the part. So what we do is we'll work closely with the principals, and they will sit down with the teachers in grades 4 to 8 to have a conversation of their overall score. And just to remind everybody that that score was 30% of the final evaluation. So that it is a double check and an opportunity for the teacher to say, yes, I agree with this score. Additionally, we are going through a CUSAC, which is monitoring this year in the spring from the county office. I've shared with you our SOAs and DPRs. However, there will be a change for the regulations going forward, and Mr. Pavlik, who's been working with us for the past 4 years, just wanted to give us an update on where he sees Achieve New Jersey going. Some of the key things are in the area of principal leadership, and also in the area of teacher evaluation. So first thing is in personnel in the DPR, there's 5 areas. There's governance, there's personnel, there's fiscal, and there's operations. So what will happen is a lot of that will be focusing on personnel and how do we handle the Achieve New Jersey process. What it means is there's a compliance document. Do we have a pre-conference with the teacher? Do we have a post-conference with the teacher? Do we sit in the classroom and have multiple, if we're non-tenured teachers, were there multiple eyes on the teacher, meaning co-op observations or multiple evaluators? So there will be a look by the monitors to see that we are following true to the Achieve New Jersey process. But the second step of that is not just the compliance piece, is what feedback are we providing to the staff when we're writing these documents up? So if we're seeing things that they're excelling in, what commendations are we giving them? Or if there's some difficulties, what recommendations or support are we providing? So that's what the monitors will really look at now when they come in. So they can really pull a file. They can say, Dr. Degnan, we'd like to see your file. They can pull the file and see what is written in the file. Additionally, they will look at our SGOs. Now, we know part of Achieve New Jersey are multiple measures for evaluating teachers. In addition to the observation, there is an assessment piece for student achievement. They're going to look at how are the teachers writing their student growth objectives. Are they rigorous? Are they attainable? And what the department would like to do is say, is there a mismatch? If the teacher is getting a score of a 2.5 and they're coming back with a 4 on the SGO, where is there a mismatch? What's going on? Okay, so we have to have a conversation about our SGOs. There's something known as professional development plan that teachers have to write every year. The PDP has to really align with the observation, and if the principal provides feedback, you have to do one of your goals has to be on the feedback that's provided. So if there was a constructive criticism about classroom management, your PDP for next year would be classroom management. So that would be the teacher piece. The other piece that's important is the principal piece, and the department knows that they really haven't really focused on the principal or the leadership piece. And what they'll like to say is the greatest predictor of success for a student achievement is the teacher in the classroom, but also what the principal provides to the overall school. So they're going to start to look at administrator goals and the way we write them. And what they recommend is between 1 and 4 goals. Now, we've sat down with our principal leaders. Dr. Wanko's had an opportunity to review their goals. Goals could be multi-year goals, because like a teacher, it's a body of work from September to May. It's a little different when you're looking at a principal. You just don't sit in the principal's office and get a bigger picture. You can have artifacts, or a blog, or a tweet that they're putting out. You can look at indirect evidence through surveys. We can look at direct evidence, where we could sit down and interview and how they're hiring. But ultimately, the new focus going forward would be that look at principals and how they're working. So Mr. Palick also gave us some suggestions, and we are going in the right direction. We do have a strategic plan, and what he would like to see is that your goals, the board goals, our district goals, are aligned with the administrator goals. And then, of course, those administrative goals ultimately focus down into the SGOs, which are on a teacher level. So we do appreciate Mr. Palick's feedback. He gave us some wonderful suggestions. We know what we have to do for CUSAC. We're looking forward to the review, and we think we're in good shape for this year, and we're moving forward for the next round in 3 years.
Dr. Degnan,
Yes, questions?
when do you expect CUSAC to come in?
I would expect they would come in the spring.
Spring?
I would hope that they would come before the park starts. I would hope it would be March or April. That would be my expectation. Right now, they're going to what's called district improvement panels, where they're going to schools, other schools, their mid-year reviews. We are in a 3-year cycle full review. Thank you.
Yesterday, you might have read on the front page of the local paper a story on breakfast in school programs statewide. Had a little bit of a misleading headline for the story if you read the story through. Mr. Smith is going to expand on that, as well as discuss the CAFRA, the CAP, and the demographer's draft report. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Dr. Wanko. Good evening, everybody. I'll start with the CAFRA. In tonight's packet before the board, you will be voting on whether to accept the comprehensive annual financial review. We did send it home to everybody on Friday, along with the corrective action plan. That's probably on the non-consent part of the agenda towards the back of your packets. Just so you know, the CAFRA was presented by our auditors, Donahue, Geronda, Doria, and Tompkins, and the general fund ended with a plus balance of $1,276,000, just for your edification. The corrective action plan, there were no repeat offenses in this year's, no repeat findings in this year's CAFRA. We do have 3 areas of concern, which we are already addressing. One of them is where we are booking a retro if we do that in the future. Historically, as you remember, we wanted to book that retro in 2016, but because of the shortfall, we booked it in July of 2017. The auditor has written that up and said it should have been booked in the fiscal year that the retro was settled on. So we will make it a point in future settlements to make sure that we do that correctly. The healthcare issue has been addressed already with that one employee who was receiving benefits, and we are now utilizing a more robust uniform chart of accounts as approved by the state of New Jersey, and Matt has been doing wonders making sure each department and each employee is getting paid out of the correct bucket of money. Matt and Brian DeLucia, our county consultant, worked hand in hand on that, and it's going to prove very fruitful in the very near future. Dr. Wanko mentioned the demographer. We were asked by the county to go out and get a demographer to do a study of the district. What they found out, since 2010, the population of Bayonne as a whole has grown 7.11%, with more to come. Student population has been flat the last couple of years, around that 9,300 number, but they do foresee with the development that is going on in this town that those numbers will rise dramatically. So along with the demographer and the long-range facilities plan that we are actively working on, we will come up with a criteria for improvements to our schools, and we might be able to also come up with plans for new buildings in this town. The last school that was built was a Resco school, and that was probably maybe 10, 12 years ago. It was completed, I believe, 2005 or 2006. So, and you look at other communities, schools are going up with debt service. We may be able to get as much as 60% back on the dollar if we do build a new school. So it's something that the board seriously needs to look at, and we will come back to you once the long-range facilities plan is completed. We will come back to you with those facts and figures. The headline that Dr. Wanko talked about, the breakfast, thousands of Bayonne students not partaking of breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a universal breakfast in the classroom district. And by universal, what that means is that we provide a USDA-approved breakfast to each and every student, regardless of income. They do not have to fill out an application. But some students do not participate. They're either eating at home, they may have a religious a roadblock in front of them where they're not allowed to eat during the month of Ramadan when people fast. So our numbers have dropped below 60% for the first time that I can remember. We do lead the county in participation, and we are above the state level of 44% statewide. Would we love to see these students eat? We have tried everything from grab and go at the high school. High school kids are a little more difficult because they always seem to be on the move. In the grammar schools, we call it breakfast in the classroom, or the BIC program, where they actually eat right before or during homeroom, right before homeroom first period starts. The teacher may even be teaching a lesson while that breakfast is going on. So we are actively pursuing our students. We want them to eat. Studies have shown that when children eat breakfast, there's less trips to the nurse, there's less discipline problems, and generally they are much more healthy. So we are doing everything except hand feeding them, going to the classroom and forcing them. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, we do change our menus up. Frank is very good about that. He's passionate about what he does, but we're always looking to make sure all of our students are fed. Case in point, Dr. Wanko's extended feeding program. Pretty soon we'll be in 2 more schools, number 4 and number 2 schools, getting their paperwork in, and those students who are identified on the SNAP rolls, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, and on the master eligibility list, they will be sent home with packages of food product to get them over holidays and weekends. So we are doing everything that we can. The headline, I did call him Ron Zettlinger from the Jersey Journal. I told him I was disappointed at best with the headline, that he should actually come down and walk our buildings in the morning when we are doing our feeding program. So he may take us up on that, so we may get a kickback story on that about how we are trying to feed each of our 9,300 students.
12.
And that's all I have, Dr. Wanko.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Trustee
I have a
Garrett?
question, Mr. Smith. On the demographic report that was sent to us, there are, in my opinion, there are glaring errors in the calculations and the assumptions that were made as far as the number of students that they come up with. And let me give you an example. If you turn to page 12 of the report, it gives you a number of projects that are either under construction or will be built. As chairman of the planning board for the last decade or so, it has been my practice that any development that comes into Bayonne, that the mix of apartments that have bedrooms in them is somewhere between 40 and 55% studios and 1-bedrooms. The assumption here is that there are 2- and 3-bedroom apartments. That's not so. So the number of studios and 1-bedrooms would be almost half of the figure that they have here. The other thing that they did, if you go to page 7, they got the information from Susan Mack, who's the city planner. And while Susan presented all of the numbers of units in each one of the projects, they did not utilize her information as to what was approved and the number of bedrooms in each apartment. What they did is they used historical data in the city of Bayonne. And if you remember, before all these high-rises were built, the majority of homes that were built were either one-family or two-family houses that all had 3 bedrooms or more. So when you're using historical data, you have to understand that there's been a major shift in the strategy of developers, and in order for them to get approved, they have to comply with a reasonable amount of studios and one-bedrooms to ease the financial burden on a school system. So I would suggest that we go back to whoever provided this.
Okay.
Maybe they speak with Susan Mack and get the actual numbers, because we have them. We have the actual numbers of
The other
bedrooms.
thing it doesn't take into effect, if you sell your 1 or 2 family and move into a studio or a 1-bedroom,
That's
it
correct.
doesn't take into effect the vacancy in your
That's right.
home, in that 3-bedroom home now.
That's correct.
And we've told them about that, but we will make your point to them. It's only a draft, and the
And
good
one-
thing
one
about
of the
drafts
things-
is that we can edit it and correct it.
And one of the things that you could do, and I'm sure we have a database of where children live in our system. There is 3 projects that are complete. You have the Silk Lofts on the old Baby Form building, that's over, somewhere around 100 units. Yeah. You have Camelot on 2nd Street and the Boulevard, and you have the Park on 43rd Street and the Boulevard. They're all complete.
Right.
And perhaps you could just run a database search with those addresses and how many students are coming from there, and you get a better idea of the amount of students per address, and that would give you an accurate number. That's all I have to say about this.
Trustee?
I would just like to know, Trustee Ehrlich is available for an interview because he has a wealth of knowledge, and I don't think you should just leave it to Susan. Before you go, parting gift to us. Set
I
it
have his
straight.
number, I have his number.
I bet you do.
We will-
You could call anytime,
And we know where he lives.
within walking distance.
If I
But
could
but 1,900 students is way, way off base.
We had said that, but being a draft, we wanted to get all of our thoughts and give you folks a chance to dive into it and come up with your opinions.
As another aside, and I mentioned this when I retired from the planning board, that the planning board now has 3 educators on the planning board. The current chairman is Karen Faramonte, who's the vice principal downtown. You have newly elected Maria Velardo as the vice chairman, and you also have a principal on the planning board, George Becker. So you do have a relationship and a contact to know on an ongoing basis what projects are going on, what's been approved, and what you extrapolate what they think is going to be the student enrollment from those projects.
If I could just make one comment about the food program. I think the most important part of the food program is to remember as to, maybe some people aren't eating, but the most important fact is that the children who need something to eat the most are receiving something. And I think as long as we use that method to go about our business, I think we'll always be in the right frame. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. At this holiday time, on behalf of the Cabinet, I wish everyone the best of health, happiness, and prosperity. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
I just wanted to remark on the fire prevention. They expanded the program, and this year they honored or recognized 142 of our students, which is quite an increase of what they've done before. And probably my youngest granddaughter was part of that, but the place was packed. So what I was wondering is if they do this again in the future, perhaps they could coordinate with you and do it in the auditorium. If there's 142 students citywide, they don't fit in city council chambers.
We could reach out to the city and
I think it
propose
was their
that.
first time doing it without Joyce Lidge, who was their coordinator, so there's a few rough spots, but it was beautiful.
Dr. Maida?
I'll be right there, and we'll get started. We'll start with our communications, and I'll go over it this one. Communications haven't changed since the package that was sent out. Same thing with our commendation, and they'll be here tonight, Bayonne High School students, award winners. I'll start with the consent agenda. First is curriculum. Curriculum Committee met on the 18th. You'll see the majority of the resolutions were staffed to attend workshop, and then there was an agreement with Foundation for Educational Administration. You've had all these resolutions. There has been no change on any of the curriculum. It was moved by trustee Finnerty, and it was seconded by trustee Ryan. Okay, so unless there's any particular questions, I'll move on to budget and finance. Budget, Finance, and Building and Grounds met on the 14th. Went through all the resolutions that you have in front of you, plus the CAFR report. As Mr. Smith said, the CAFR is going to be on non-consent. If there's any particular questions on any of these resolutions, like I said, everything was sent home. Okay, I'll move ahead to personnel. C1 and C2 are going to be for inside. Then C3, 4, and 5 were sent home, various positions, coaches, advisors, and community education. And unless there's any particular questions for Mr. Kopaz or the committee, I'll move on. Okay, not hearing any, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kopaz for C6, which is our monthly report on harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Thank you, Dr. Maida. In accordance with the Bayonne Board of Education Policy 5512, during this reporting period, 3 incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying have been reported and investigated at the following schools. 1 incident at Henry E. Harris School and 2 incidents at Dr. Walter Robinson School. In all 3 cases, the evidence did not support the investigated acts of HIB. Strategies, resources, and remedial measures were implemented. All documentation is being retained by the school anti-bullying coordinators.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Kopaz? Okay, if not, resolution C7 to C12, same thing. It was all in the packets that were sent home. There have been no changes. The committee met on the 14th also and went over everything. So unless there's any particular questions, I know we have a lot inside. I'd like to get us out of open session and into close. So not hearing any questions, I'll adjourn the open workshop, and we'll move into a closed workshop for legal, personnel, and negotiation items. It is 6:35. The board will return.